Hey guys, welcome back. I recently picked up a brand new 2023 Jeep Gladiator Rubicon for an amazing deal. And I purchased this vehicle to be a replacement for my minivan camper that I normally feature on this channel. So today I want to share my top 5 first impressions of this Jeep Gladiator Rubicon. And since it's only 10 degrees Fahrenheit out right now, I want to move inside and talk about the interior first. And the first major upgrade from my older vehicle is this key fob. I didn't even have to pull it out of my pocket except to show you guys that I have it. But it automatically unlocks all of the doors as soon as I put my hand inside of the well. If you are already familiar with the body style of the Jeep Gladiator as well as that of the Wrangler, then what I'm about to say will not come as a surprise to you. And that is that these Jeeps are a very tight fit. I'm 5'9" and the front passenger seat is as far back as it goes, and it does feel a little bit like I'm right up in the dashboard. And on top of that, the footwell in this passenger area is pretty tight. There's only about enough room for another width of my foot in the middle here. I don't usually keep a lot of junk in the front seat or the passenger wheel well, but I have to keep in mind if I have a passenger, I really don't want to have anything in here because it will definitely cause them some discomfort. Surprisingly, the driver's side is a few inches wider, but it does feel a little bit like my foot is hanging off to the left or the right because there's no dead pedal over here in the front driver's compartment. On top of that, there are these 2 straps in the driver's compartment that rub on my calves when I'm going up and down the road. I've kind of gotten used to it, but it is a little strange having that push against my calf while I'm driving. One of the main reasons that I decided to get a Jeep over continuing with my minivan is I want to do some adventures with my family. And there are 5 of us, and there are 5 seats in this Jeep. And the best part about this Jeep is as long as I keep the passenger compartment clear, we all fit pretty comfortably. But there are 5 of us, and one huge downside to this 5-seat Jeep Gladiator is it only has 4 cup holders. It has the 2 up front in the dash as well as these 2 down here. And that's just a small gripe because my wife and kids absolutely love riding around with me in the Jeep. Something else to consider in this vehicle is the Jeep Gladiator has very limited storage space. The glove box up front is about the size of a classic lunchbox, and there is a pretty cavernous center console, but that's about it on this vehicle. When these 2 cup holders are full, and maybe I have my key here in this little slot, the only other place I could realistically store something is going to be either in between the parking brake or in this little door net on the side. The driver and passenger seat do have these little mat pockets as well as smaller versions of those nettings in the door. The other main place that you might store something is going to be under the back seat. It does have a pretty good sized bucket back here, and as you can see, I've got a couple things already stored in here. And then finally, you might find yourself putting something behind the seat. Now keep in mind, if you do put stuff behind the seat, there is this metal bracket where it locks into the back of the seat, as well as these latch locations for a car seat. If you are considering using this vehicle, it does have a top tether as well as side tethers underneath it for at least 3 car seats, but 3 car seats in the back of here is going to be a super tight fit. I would say maybe 2 car seats at the most with 4 people total in this vehicle. But once those kids grow out of those car seats, there's plenty of room for 3 teenagers or young adults back here. While I'm back here talking about the top tethers, there is a decent sized little storage area right back here behind the seat. Let's go check out the driver's side and see if there's one over there as well. Before we go back there, I do have a small toolbox in here that I keep just to make sure that I have any tools that I might need to do minor jobs. And then under this lid is a little cover to keep all of your components for when you pull off your top, your roof, or your doors. So let's see if there is another storage compartment behind this back seat. And we've got less space over here, but we do again have that 3rd top tether as well as another little net that you might put maybe a book, bungee cords, something small in there. But behind here is plenty of space to maybe fit a small air compressor, jumper cables, or other things that you might be using out on the trail. This Gladiator came stock with the Falken Wild Peak AT tires, and if you've been following my channel for a while, you'll know that I essentially put these tires on every vehicle that I have. So I'm glad to have those on this vehicle as well. The reason I love the Falken Wild Peak tires so much is that, in my opinion, they are the most versatile off-road, mud, snow, and street capable tire. So they're not necessarily the best at any of those things, but they're decently good in all of those conditions. The Jeep does have that passive entry remote, and so to start the vehicle, I'm just gonna put my foot on the brake and touch the start button. And it's still 10 degrees Fahrenheit. So we've got the Jeep started up, and I absolutely love this 8.4 inch, I think it's called a Uconnect display. The touchscreen works really well. It responds very quickly to my taps. There's no goofing around. The only thing that takes a while to load is this off-road pages. I don't mind that because when it does load, this gives me all the information about the coolant temperature, oil temperature, trans temperature, oil pressure, and battery voltage, as well as pitch and roll if I'm going kind of slow. You can see right now I'm nose down 1 degree and I'm canted to the right 4 degrees. And then if I want to look at what I've got going on with the transmission and steering wheel, I can see those as well. But like I said, my favorite thing is these gauges. And while I've got those gauges up, I can cycle through and put the pitch and roll right here on the display as well. Oh, and on top of that, there was my tire pressure, which this Jeep is spoiling me with all kinds of information, which as someone who's gotten my hands dirty in a lot of vehicles, this is great information to know. And this brings me to my first regret about buying the Jeep Gladiator. Right here in this little slot from the factory, there is an option to have 4 auxiliary switches. I believe it's 220 amp fuses and 240 amp fuses, and with those 4 things, I could hook up all kinds of accessories. So if I want to add things like lights or any other accessories, I'm either going to have to go into the fuse box or add those auxiliary switches later on my own. And then I've heard you have to get those turned on at the dealership once you install them. But this one did come equipped with the front and rear locker system, where you can select either the rear locker only or both the front and rear lockers, as well as a sway bar disconnect and this off-road plus button. Anytime I'm going into 4-high over the last 1,500 miles, I hit that off-road plus button and that sway bar disconnect. Using the off-road plus button optimizes all of the electronic systems for the vehicle for off-roading. And for me, just getting into the world of off-roading, it's good to have all of those additional benefits, which allows me to focus more on what I want to do, which is drive the vehicle. But one thing you want to keep in mind, if you are using the rear or front and rear locker, you do have to be in the 4-low setting. I'm at just under 1,500 miles on the Jeep Gladiator, and I have enjoyed every single mile. And the reason I'm bringing that up is I was trying for my first few tanks of gas to get that maximum fuel economy, but I just couldn't get above 18 miles per gallon. And even now, before I show you, I want you to keep in mind, I have been going out, going off-road, trying all kinds of things, playing around out here in the snow, but I'm currently only getting 12.7 miles per gallon on this tank. Getting that gas mileage, I've left the auto stop start enabled, so sometimes when I'm sitting there with my foot on the brake, it will shut down the motor, but for the most part, I've been idling, I've been going up and down little slopes, I've been putting it in 4-low, 4-high, I've been experimenting with all the settings, burning a little more gas than I would if I was just going to use this to ride up and down the highway. In fact, in my last video, I was out doing a little bit of off-roading, and my average for that trip was about 6 miles per gallon. Lots of stopping, lots of starting, lots of slipping and sliding, and just overall having a really good time. And so when I talked to my buddy about it, his advice to me was, don't worry about the miles per gallon, worry about the smiles per gallon. And I love that perspective, but what I can tell you is I'm definitely not smiling when I'm filling up the tank at the gas station. But my family is, and that's what's most important to me. Before I move on too far from the screen, there is something I don't like. Like I said, I like this off-road pages button, but there's a SOS button and an assist button right next to it. And occasionally I've accidentally hit that assist button, and I've heard if you hit that SOS button, it will immediately call 911. And so I don't want to have that happen while I'm just goofing around and trying to hit this button. So I wish they had put that option somewhere a little more further away from the page that I like. And I wonder if I'm able to move these around or rearrange them to find out if I can just move this somewhere over here. Let's see. Oh, good. I'm going to put this one where I want it, which is down here at the bottom. closest to me as the driver. Please don't call the police. Move that over onto this next page. Out of the way. And I'm so glad that by moving that SOS button, I didn't call the police, because yesterday when I was trying to hit the off-road pages button, I accidentally hit the assist button, and I didn't realize, but for several minutes I was connecting to the Sirius XM network help team, and I don't know if they got information or whatever, but I was so glad that, you know, they didn't activate or send emergency services out into the middle of nowhere to find me when I wasn't having any kind of an emergency. I know this is a Jeep, so I should expect this, but this mirror and the passenger mirror are very limited in what you can see on the sides. They're not wide angle mirrors, so you really can't see what's going on in the lane next to you. So for that reason, I added these little blind spot mirrors just so I can see what's beside me without having to turn all the way back. Yes, I do a shoulder check, but with the right mirror, you can see 1 or 2 lanes beside you and further away, making it a much safer way to drive the vehicle. So like I said before, I bought this Jeep really as a replacement for my minivan so I could set it up as an overland camper, take my family out, go exploring with them, and overall just have a good time. So what I have planned for the next few months on this channel here at Off-Grid Adventure is I'm gonna slowly upgrade this Jeep Gladiator to an overland camping exploration vehicle. The first couple things that I'm going to do over the next few weeks is install a camping bed rack, one of those overland bed racks, as well as put the decked drawer system in the back of the vehicle. Once I get those things installed, I'll probably install my mini fridge that I took from my van, and then I'll also just slowly add all of the things that will make this a comfortable camping experience for myself as well as the rest of my family. Now keep in mind, I got this vehicle kind of as a year-end clearance, so I didn't order it with all of the things that I would like to have had, and there is something back here that I wish I got that I don't have right now, and that's the factory tow kit. These Jeep Gladiator Rubicons are rated at towing up to 6,700 pounds if you have the factory tow kit. Underneath of this bumper is a half bumper, essentially, that is rated to put a little ball on for up to 3,500 pounds. And if I want to upgrade my Gladiator to get that full 6,700 pounds of capability, which I've already heard is going to be a squirrely experience at best, then not only would I have to get that OEM 7,000 pound rated hitch, but there's also a bigger cooling fan and a bigger alternator that I would need to install. I will probably end up installing that bigger alternator anyway, because as I deck this out for overland camping, I might like to have that additional power available to charge things like my fridge and maybe a power station. And this brings me to my final regret about options that I didn't get when buying this vehicle. These halogen headlamps are perfect in the snow, but the lighting on them is only about half of what I would expect from a current LED setup. And the OEM LED setup is actually a very good set of headlights. However, I have heard of situations in the snow like this where they do ice over because they don't get hot enough to melt the snow. And if you want to install them yourself, you have to go to the dealership to get them to activate certain components of it. And I get it, this is 2024. A lot of folks don't even know how to open the hoods of their vehicles. But to have to go to the dealership to activate those auxiliary switches, which are essentially plug and play besides that option, as well as those LED headlights, which are again plug and play besides the activation, to me it's just ridiculous that I would have to go to the dealership to get that done. So there are a couple things I have to keep in mind as I start to put accessories on this Jeep, as it does have a limited payload capability. And so I've got to make sure that I don't overload it so that when my entire family is in there, that I'm busting the gross vehicle weight rating. And so I'll closely monitor that, and as I get to that limit, I'll decide which items must go and which ones I have to keep. And essentially, I want to make sure that I do whatever I'm going to do camping in a very safe manner. I do know that a lot of you already have a lot of knowledge on Jeeps, Jeep culture, things like that, but I do have a couple of questions. And the first one is, should I name my Jeep? I know a lot of folks do name their Jeeps. I'm considering putting you know, where the Rubicon sticker is, some kind of cool Jeep name like Destroyer or, you know, Trail Eater or something like that. And then so the last question is, should I be sociable and do the duck thing, or be more traditional and not have a bunch of kids' toys lining the dashboard of my vehicle? Either way, guys, the last thing I want to talk about is the heated steering wheel and the heated seats. The seats warm you up quickly. The steering wheel also actually does warm you up. And so I have tried those on some other vehicles before and been a little disappointed, but that seat heater will keep me warm, and sometimes it just helps me relax my back a little bit with that hot seat. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If so, please subscribe, and I'll see you on my next adventure.